Hey, Joe here from Home Studio Corner. I don't have a lot of time today, but I want to show you something really cool. A client hired me to master a song for him recently, and in his notes that he sent to me, he said, hey, I'm pretty happy with the mix, but I wonder if the guitars, the electric guitars that are panned kind of hard left and right, if they're a little too thick. He was asking if I needed to tell him to go back and remix it or adjust those. But when I pulled the mix in to listen, I noticed that, yeah, they are a little bit thick, and I do agree with that. But this is a perfect candidate for using mid-side processing. Now, I don't use mid-side a lot. It can be complicated, and I feel like it can mess things up a lot of times if you're not careful, but there are some situations where it makes a lot of sense. So real quickly, mid-side processing is the idea of taking a stereo file. As you can see, this is a stereo file with a left and a right, and it uses some magical algorithm voodoo magic to split that into two sounds. One sound is the sound of the middle, everything that's panned up the middle in the mix. The other sound is everything that's on the sides. So the sides go down one path, the mid goes down another path, which means I can treat them differently. Specifically, I can EQ the sides differently than the mids. So if we take a listen to the raw track without any processing on it, let's listen to the guitars and see if they are indeed a little too muddy, a little too warm. So the guitars are panned hard left and right. Killer sounding mix, drums, bass, it's got a nice kick and punch to it up the middle. I'd say, yeah, I agree the guitars are a little too thick. Well, what's beautiful about this is since the stuff up the middle sounds great, the drums, the kick, snare, bass, vocal, that's all sitting pretty well in the middle, then I can just address the stuff on the sides, which is primarily the guitars. Quick mixing tip. If you're mixing a lot of stuff and panning them hard left and right, a lot of times I like to think of the bass heavy stuff is up the middle, and the farther I get to the sides, the less low end I want to have there. So you could, when you're mixing these, you could roll off a little extra low end on the guitars if they're going to be way out wide to hopefully prevent this problem from happening. But in this instance, it's actually an easy problem to solve using mid-side processing. So here we are in Studio One, and the first tool I have in the chain is the mix tool. And that allows me to increase the gain into the limiter, which is what I normally do for just getting the volume up. But it also has this MS Transform button, which does that mid-side processing I was talking about. So now, if we look, the signal is coming through here. It's getting split. So the left-hand side is the mid signal. The right-hand side is the side signal. Let me turn these plugins off real quickly so you can just hear what each sounds like. I can click a little section right here that basically takes this out of the chain. So right now we're listening to just the mid of the mix. Notice how the vocals and drums are up there, but the guitars are pretty distant. And then here's the side. Now the reason this isn't a left and right or isn't split funny is I have another mix tool that's converting it back. Basically, I have to put the mid-side transform in two places. So if we look, if I take that out and we do the same thing again, you'll hear one's on the left, one's on the right. That's the side. Here's the mid. And now that they're split like that, we can treat them independently. I'm going to turn the mix tool back on so we can actually do this without having it all the way to the right. So let's listen to the side again. Let's just look at the EQ that I put on the side. So here's the side by itself. And you know what? Sometimes to get that phasey sound out, we can just listen to this in mono for a minute. No, we can't listen in mono because that cancels it out. Durga, durga, durga. I knew that. I knew that was going to happen. I knew I was going to do that. I kept saying to myself, don't do that. Let's turn this second one off and just listen this way. So you hear that goo, 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 goo. It's just a little too thick. So we throw some EQ on there and we make it all better. Still got some thickness. It's not completely thin and anemic, but it works. And then I thought, well, you know what? Let's just throw a little more EQ, boost the highs a little bit, make it a little bit brighter, and shoot, why not compress it a little bit as well? just tightened it up a little bit. And if we go back and listen to that with the main mix, let's listen to what that sounds like. Got to turn off the mid side now. Now let's listen. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. Did you hear the difference? I'm going to do it one more time. I'll start with these plugins off, then I'll turn them back on, and listen to how much clearer the guitars are, and the middle stays just as punchy as it ever was. We never messed with the middle. We only messed with the sides. Here we go. I'll be on my way. I'll be on my way. We took less attention away from the sides and made the middle more the star of the show, but we were able to do that without hurting the middle at all. So in a normal mastering scenario, maybe you're new to mastering, or you just, the way you normally master, or honestly the way I normally master, is I put an EQ on there and see what I can do. But as you may well know, and it's probably pretty obvious, if I were to EQ the entire mix to get rid of that muddiness, what would happen? Well, it would get rid of the muddiness in the guitars, but it would also take out all the warmth of the bass and the kick and the snare drum. And there would be this big compromise. Mid-side comes in and allows me to not have to compromise. I can treat the sides and the mids exactly how I want them, and then when they come back together, it just sounds glorious. I'll be on my way. And all that without having to go back and do a mix revision. Now, I'm all about getting it right at the source. I'm all about making the mix sound as good as possible. But then when you get to mastering, there are some cool tricks that you can do using science and things like mid-side to make some really cool sounds. All right, that's it for me. If you're wanting to know more about me as it comes to mixing and my approach to mixing to get those mixes finished so they're ready for mastering, and you haven't yet checked it out, go to 5stepmix.com to check out my free 5-step mix guide. It'll walk you through my process for mixing a song from start to finish, how to start it, how to do the middle section, and how to get to that finish line, all in a very easy to follow process. All right, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. See ya.